I want to apologize for this picture because I know it's so bad on the eyes, but this is USA Today. Now, Trump is not the only president that downplayed a pandemic. The same thing happened to Woodrow Wilson right here. He was the president during the Spanish flu. So this is October 3rd, 2020. Woodrow Wilson downplayed the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic. Then he got violently ill. Yes, he did. Even a US president couldn't avoid a pandemic that swept the world and infected millions. The year 1919, the president, Woodrow Wilson, the disease dubbed the Spanish flu, emerged in 1918 during the last month of World War I. Initially, Wilson administration tried to downplay the disease, even as it spread worldwide. Presidential historian Tevi Troy cited the administration's response to the pandemic, calls Woodrow Wilson the worst U.S. president in terms of handling a disaster. The federal response to the influenza outbreak in 1918 can best be described as neglectful. Hundreds of thousands of Americans died without President Wilson saying anything or mobilizing non-military components of the U.S. government to help the civilian population, Troy wrote. Shall we wake the president? 2 centuries of disaster management from the Oval Office. He also blames Wilson for contributing to the pandemic by continuing the mobilization of troops, even as World War I was winding to a close. April 1919, however, Wilson himself contracted the illness shortly after arriving in Paris for the Big Four peace talks. Sarah Fling, a fellow writing for the White House Historical Association, notes that a number of members of the Wilson entourage had caught the flu during a transatlantic voyage in February 1919, including his daughter, Margaret, several members of the Secret Service, Wilson's stenographer, and his chief usher. Boy, doesn't this sound familiar? Like everybody up at the White House damn near got it. News of Wilson's illness was initially hidden from the public. Ooh, talk about history repeating itself. With the Associated Press reporting flatly on April 5th that the president was not stricken with influenza. But no one knew better than what was unfolding than Rear Admiral Carrie T. Grayson, personal physician to the president. Publicly, Grayson said only the president had caught a cold because of his workload and the chilly and rainy weather in Paris. Privately, however, Grayson told a different story in a letter that only became public a little over a decade ago. He wrote to a friend on April 14th explaining, "These past 2 weeks have certainly been strenuous days for me. The president was stricken, taken violently sick with the influenza at a time when the whole civilization seemed to be in balance. And without him and his guidance, Europe would certainly have turned into Bolshevism and anarchy." He continued in a letter now held by Woodrow Wilson Presidential Library. "From your side of the water, you cannot realize on what thin ice European civilization has been skating. I just wish you could spread I'm sorry, let me read that again. I just wish you could spend a day with me behind the scenes here. Someday, perhaps, I may be able to tell the world what a close call had been. So he got very ill over in Paris with Spanish flu, and they tried not to tell anybody about it. But he downplayed it, just like Trump, like history repeating itself. He downplayed it and then he ended up getting it. Okay. Okay. So during peace talks, Fling writes the Big Four, where we're trying to solve larger questions of Germany reparations. They were talking about reparations back then, too. Interesting. 100 years ago, but not for us. The creation of the League of Nations and the threat of Bolshevism, um, all of which were jeopardized by Wilson's illness. Around the same time, Washington Post columnist, the country will be anxious regarding President Wilson until he is again at work. It is time when an hour loss means the loss of millions of hours to these individuals who are waiting to begin reconstruction. The Allied world hopes, for the sake of its material interests, that his illness will be light and brief. As the president's illness progressed, aides became alarmed when the normally predictable Wilson began, on at least two occasions, blurting out unexpected orders. The president created a scene over pieces of furniture that had suddenly disappeared, when in fact it had not been moved. At one point, Berg writes, Wilson was certain that he was surrounded by French spies. I guess this all happened when he was sick. Chief Usher Irwin Hoover later recalled, according to John M. Barry, that the great influenza, the story of the deadliest pandemic in history, one thing was certain: he was never the same after this little spell of sickness. Barry writes that the flu undercut Wilson's stamina, disrupted his concentration, and affected his mind in other deeper ways. 6 months after contracting the flu, Wilson suffered a stroke that left him partially paralyzed and blind and effectively incapacitated as president. He died on February 1924, 3 years after leaving office. Wow, some of the similarities in here is spooky. But y'all, please tell me what you think. I mean, this was 100 years ago during the Spanish flu. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.